On an overcast Wednesday, the atmosphere in the courtroom felt stifled, as if justice itself had grown weary. The judge's chambers echoed with the shuffle of papers and muffled conversations, but the souls within the ornate walls felt disconnected, preoccupied with trivialities rather than the fate of those brought before them. A frail figure shuffled into view, an elderly man named Harold Spencer, whose very presence seemed to scream of abandonment. His disheveled clothing clung to him, a tapestry of rain-soaked fabric and frayed edges that told tales of nights spent braving the elements. The bailiff led him across the slick marble floor, each step a reminder of the life he had lost, his wrists restrained by plastic cuffs that seemed far too cold for the warm blood they contained. In a gallery filled with spectators, some cast sympathetic glances, while others displayed their judgment shawls, muttering and whispering with expressions ranging from pity to disdain. Harold, with his wild hair and bruised skin, appeared less a person than a specter, mumbling under his breath as if apologizing for his very existence. Presiding over the courtroom was Judge Lewis Hargrove, an imposing figure who seemed more concerned with maintaining order than with the sanctity of the law. He rapped his gavel impatiently. "Clear this farce from my docket. This is not a safe haven for the homeless." His impatience echoed throughout the room, underscoring the indifference of the system. The charges brought against Harold were for trespassing. The prosecutor recounted how this unfortunate soul had sought refuge against the cold, using an American flag for a pillow as he slumbered in front of the federal courthouse the previous night. What a fittingly pathetic image it was, a man cocooned in the very fabric of the country that had turned its back on him. "We need to remember," the prosecutor continued, leaning towards the judge with an air of arrogant mockery, "that this man claims the flag was his father's. Heartwarming, isn't it? Maybe next he'll sleep with the Constitution and argue for patriotism." He chuckled. The courtroom responded with a wave of laughter, but it was a laughter tinged with cruelty, one that belied a society's deep-seated disdain for the invisible struggles of the forgotten. Just then, the doors at the rear of the courtroom swung open, and in strode a commanding figure, Danielle Carter, dressed in a fitted black suit that radiated authority. As she stepped forward, the sound of her heels resonated across the tiled floor, and her sharp eyes assessed the scene in front of her. "I suppose I've chosen the wrong courtroom as well, Your Honor," she declared, voice steady and unwavering. The atmosphere instantly shifted. The judge's annoyance stoked his already ruffled feathers. "Miss Carter, I wasn't aware you were part of this matter," he responded curtly. "I am now," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "I represent the accused, Harold Spencer, and I urge you to remember that name." It was her delivery that drew attention, held in a tension between calm resolve and unwavering challenge. The judge squinted at her as if daring her to continue. "Miss Carter," the judge enunciated slowly, "this man is charged with illegal loitering. He was found on federal property causing a public disturbance." "Sleep, Your Honor," she shot back, "is hardly a disturbance, especially considering he was alone, a soldier resting beside a flag." Her strength wove through her words like a thread through fabric, and for a moment, the laughter died down. As the prosecution flipped through dossiers, smirking, they declared, "Your Honor, our side possesses video evidence of the defendant's behavior. He's even caught on tape shouting at security." "Let's see it," Danielle commanded. Her tone left no room for argument. Upon motioning for the screen, the courtroom braced itself. The small screen flickered to life, revealing grainy footage shot from a security camera. The image depicted Harold, a slumped figure disturbed from sleep by two guards, barely able to string together a cohesive sentence. Yet one phrase pierced through the chaos of the tape, his hoarse voice barely more than a whisper. "I sacrificed for this nation, and now I'm not even allowed to rest in it." Laughter trickled through the room again, but this time it bore a different weight. Uncertainty mingled with tension. Those gathered had laughed moments ago at his plight, but now were faced with the sting of a truth that dug deeper than they expected. Danielle rested her eyes upon Harold, who appeared small and lost in the discomfort of his own reality. She knelt to his level, adjusting the tattered edge of his coat. "Back off," the bailiff warned, but Danielle lifted her hand gently. "In this courtroom, we secure justice, but we must first remember our humanity," she professed quietly, but firmly. The judge shifted, visibly unsettled, but retained his composure. "This is a courtroom, not a place for theatrics." "Then let us act with the decorum that's warranted," Danielle replied, leveling her gaze at the judge. "But, more importantly, let's recognize the man behind this indictment." As the prosecution laughed to distract themselves from the growing unease in the courtroom, Danielle's presence enveloped the room with gravitas. She reached into her leather satchel and withdrew an item, its faded edges shimmering under the harsh courtroom lights. "This, Your Honor, was found in Mr. Spencer's coat pocket, a military dog tag." She passed it towards the bench. "It bears his name, Harold Spencer, Marine Corps veteran." There was a tangible pause as the courtroom absorbed her revelation. The silence came heavy, punctuated by the quiet rustling of papers as eyes shifted among the attendees. "How many of you knew that before you laughed?" she posed, her voice softening momentarily. Harold looked up, his tired eyes blinking back tears, exposed yet vulnerable. Danielle circularized her gaze across the room, filled not only with shame, but with potential understanding. "Because if you're still listening, lend your support. A single action can ignite change. Hit like if this story matters." The judge, being forced to contend with the past beings resurfaced, shifted uncomfortably. A weight of realization struck him as it became evident the laughs were no longer warranted. The court adjourned for lunch, but as the people filed out, murmurs of dissent persisted. Crowds of reporters swarmed outside, eager for narratives and capturing footage of the unfolding scene. "Danielle Carter is defending a homeless man," they exclaimed, "and he's not just some stray, but a disgraced soldier." The commotion accompanied viral outrage on social media. "Why would she support someone who insults what this country stands for?" tweeted one detractor. "What a waste." Inside her office, Danielle pivoted between biting cold coffee and the dog tag, its inscription weighing her with curiosity. Attempts to connect with military databases led her nowhere. Each call met with frustration and ties that appeared lost forever. The mystery tightened around her as she looked at the weathered material. It was not forged, but the scars of history marked it genuine, in the correct format from the appropriate era. Through it all sat Harold, a silent guardian of his own reality, who made no demands nor sought attention, but rather existed quietly. The courtroom followed suit, tensions rising as the prosecutor prepared their strategic undermining. "Your Honor, the defense claims this man is a hero," the assistant district attorney began, a smirk playing across his lips. "But every military database confirms that Harold Spencer isn't in any verifiable military records. In a poised stance, Danielle stepped forward, determination radiating from every word. "May I respond?" Her confidence propelled her forward, guiding the judge to acquiesce reluctantly. This tag was found inside his coat wrapped in cloth that unmistakably once belonged to a military uniform. She paused, setting up the gravity of what she was about to unleash. But for the sake of argument, let's consider it could be fake. It does not remove the events of last night from their authenticity. Flipping the image projector, a photo filled the room. 5 soldiers crouched beside a military vehicle, the desolate background showcasing the aftermath of battle. A red circle highlighted one soldier, revealing a striking resemblance to Harold Spencer. This is a photograph from 1994 during Operation Persian Shield, where he served valiantly. The prosecutor scoffed skeptically. "A photo is not evidence." "Indeed," Danielle nodded. "That's why I brought this," she declared, holding up a letter, folded meticulously. A personal commendation authored by retired General Thomas Hughes, who acknowledges his bravery and notes a grievous error led to Harold's unjust discharge without benefits. The stunned silence fractured through the passivity of the court. "You mean to say he's a casualty of a mistake?" the prosecutor stuttered, incredulity lining their voice. "That's precisely what I'm saying," Danielle asserted, a fervor emerging within her. "He was lost by a system too ashamed to admit its failures." Judge Hargrove leaned back, visibly shaken, as murmurs swept across the gallery. Eyes darted nervously as the court grappled with the implications of truth unraveling within its confines. Looking outward, Danielle graced Harold with a warm glance. Tears brimmed in his eyes now. "By denying this man his story, we grew complicit in the erasure of those who promised to protect us," she stood firm. When the truth broke the structure of the courtroom, it felt transformative. It empowered and released an energy that had long been dormant. As the hearings resumed, a rallying of support emerged beyond the courtroom walls, a movement ignited by compassion for Harold, the forgotten soldier whose very existence had been swept aside. The morning sun cast its rays over the courthouse steps, drawing attention to the gathering of veterans and civilians united in solidarity. "Do we owe him our allegiance?" one voice carried through. It sparked a ripple of nods and murmurs of agreement. Danielle Carter stood steadfast next to Harold, shielded from the onslaught of negativity born of misconception and vilification. With newfound grit, she faced the judge as though challenging the status quo. Yet external threats still loomed, smear campaigns looping Jim's footage, analyzing the way he expressed pain. As emotions surged within her office, Danielle received a notice of concern from allies attempting to carve away support, a concerted effort to dismiss Harold's case before it gained any momentum. With resolve, she proclaimed, "I will not shy away from this." Stepping onto the crowded courthouse steps, Danielle stood alongside Harold, the weight of the Titan court building behind them. "My aim is not to exploit this for applause," she began, her voice unwavering, "but to speak for those whose voices echo unheard. Men and women like Harold, discarded yet deserving, demand our attention." News cameras turned, eager for clarity while the crowd erupted with applause, some supports feeding off the discourse, others readying for a fight. The courtroom sessions played out real time across the news, shaping public perception as they revealed the extensive and shameful cover-up surrounding Harold's dismissal. All in attendance, we're here to unveil a reality where the bonds of loyalty are tested and those who served risk being forgotten, Danielle declared, eyes locking with Harold's. Months passed, embedded in a never-ending struggle for justice, but the ripple effects of the coverage proved potent. The story of Harold Spencer morphed from individual tragedy into a collective fight for justice lost, and the movement captured more than just their case. It gave voice to a community overlooked. Just as the winds changed, something inside Harold blossomed, a resurgence of identity and the reclamation of resilience. Throughout every courtroom skirmish or public demoralization campaign, he stood alongside Danielle. United, they revolutionized a narrative that had once been a solitary tale. Months of division melted as movements surged forward, shedding light on veterans' unrecognized sacrifice. Old bureaucracies began to falter under emerging scrutiny. Conversations shifted, and the existing Federal Review Board initiated inquiries into wrongful veteran discharges inspired by Harold's confrontation for truth. The gavel had sounded. Time was running out for those that would reset the narrative. Thus, Harold Spencer emerged as a beacon of hope to countless souls hidden in the shadows. And as they marched forward, a quiet storm began to build, a collective that would not rest until every voice silenced by indifference found resonance and clarity once more. They stood resolutely, locked arm in arm, for the weary days of silence had given way to a new omnipresent voice, the voice of honor reclaimed, an echo that no longer waffled quietly into the night. Harold Spencer's journey transformed, and existing chains of society broke, leading an ardent force toward justice, challenging that which stood against truth. With their rallying call and every chant vibrating through chambers of old governance entrenched in thought, they secured what every wounded soldier deserved: a renewed identity, a second chance, and finally, the acknowledgement they had long awaited.